April 1912. The largest, most luxurious and most advanced ship ever built by mankind crosses the relentless Atlantic Ocean. The RMS Titanic was not just a marvel of naval engineering. It was the ultimate symbol of power and wealth. The shimmering crown of J.P. Morgan's empire, one of the most powerful, feared, and ruthless men in the entire financial world. The Titanic's maiden voyage was the event of the century. It was packed with billionaires, industrial titans, and the global elite of the era. Everyone wanted to be on board. But there was a chilling detail that the official history, the one you learned in school, desperately tries to erase. The owner of the ship, the man who financed every steel plate and every rivet of the Titanic, cancelled his passage just hours before boarding. J.P. Morgan claimed to be gravely ill, but that very night, while thousands fought for their lives in freezing waters, reporters discovered that Morgan was perfectly healthy. He was spotted at a luxury resort in France, smoking cigars with his mistress, and he wasn't the only one. Dozens of his closest associates, allied bankers and politicians, also cancelled their trips at the last minute. Did they know something? What you were sold as an inevitable tragedy, caused by a piece of ice in the dark, may have actually been the most sophisticated, cold and brutal loose-end elimination of the 20th century. Welcome to another episode of What They Don't Tell You. Let's descend to the wreckage of the Titanic and find out who needed to die that night. To understand the true motive behind a crime of this magnitude, we cannot look at the sea. We must look at the money, and we need to go back 2 years before the sinking. November 1910. A secret meeting takes place on Jekyll Island, off the coast of Georgia. There, J.P. Morgan, agents of the Rockefeller family, and emissaries of the Rothschilds were drafting what would become the Federal Reserve, the American Central Bank. The plan was brilliant and terrifying: to create a private cartel that would hold an absolute monopoly over the creation of all money in the United States. But there was a massive problem. The Jekyll Island plan faced lethal opposition. 3 of the richest and most influential men on the planet were radically against the creation of the Federal Reserve: John Jacob Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus. Combined, the fortunes of these 3 men would make entire countries envious. They were old guard billionaires. They believed that money needed to have real backing, gold backing. They knew that handing the money printer over to private bankers would destroy the economy and enslave the population through debt and inflation. With the financial, political, and media power that Astor, Guggenheim, and Straus possessed, the Federal Reserve Act would never pass the US Congress. They were an insurmountable concrete wall in the way of the banking elite. A wall that couldn't be bribed. A wall that couldn't be intimidated. For the new financial system to be born, these 3 men had to be removed from the board permanently. And the maiden voyage of the greatest marvel of the modern world seemed like the perfect invitation. The Titanic wasn't just another commercial ship. It was J.P. Morgan's personal project. His company bought the White Star Line, and he personally approved every critical detail of its construction. The marketing campaign was designed with terrifying psychological precision. They broadcast to newspapers worldwide that the ship was, quite literally, unsinkable. It was the perfect bait, feeding the ego and vanity of the world's richest and proudest men to lure them to the same place. And the bait worked. Astor, Guggenheim, and Straus bought first-class tickets. But behind the scenes at the shipyards, a macabre detail was being orchestrated. The Titanic was designed to comfortably carry over 3,000 people. However, the original project blueprints, which included dozens of additional lifeboats, were rejected. The ship set sail with enough boats to save only 1/3 of the passengers. Official history, the books your children read, calls this arrogance, overconfidence. But in a world where trillions of dollars were at stake, there are no coincidences. If the ship suffered a catastrophic accident in the middle of the frozen North Atlantic, the panic would be absolute, and there would be no escape route for everyone. The targets would be confined, trapped in a luxury prison, surrounded by a freezing abyss. April 14th, 1912. A bizarrely calm night. The sea looked like a black mirror, and there was no moon in the sky. Captain Edward Smith, a veteran deeply trusted by J.P. Morgan, who ironically was on his retirement voyage, received multiple telegraph warnings about massive ice fields ahead. Warnings that were inexplicably ignored. Instead of slowing down, the ship continued at full speed, tearing through the darkness straight into the trap. And then, at 11:40 p.m., the impact. What followed over the next few hours was meticulously planned chaos. Lifeboats began to be launched half empty. While first-class passengers tried to understand what was happening, massive iron gates on the lower decks were locked by crew members, preventing hundreds of third-class passengers from reaching safety. The rule of the night was clear: women and children first. And the wealthy men? Benjamin Guggenheim realized the end had come. He refused a life jacket, put on his finest evening wear, and sat in the smoking room, awaiting death like a gentleman. Isidor Straus was offered a seat on a boat due to his age, but refused. His wife chose to stay by his side. They were last seen embracing on the deck. John Jacob Astor, the richest man on board, placed his pregnant wife in a lifeboat, but was denied access himself by an armed officer. His body was found days later, crushed by the fall of a massive smokestack. As the black freezing waters swallowed the Titanic, they swallowed with it the last great line of defense for the American economy. The news of the sinking woke the world in a state of absolute shock. But while thousands of families mourned their dead, and newspapers printed tearful obituaries, behind the scenes of true power, the mood was one of cold, silent victory. The opposition was dead. Astor, Guggenheim, and Straus, the three unshakable giants protecting the backing of American money, lay nearly 4,000 meters deep at the dark bottom of the ocean. The political path was suddenly wide open. The Great Wall had fallen, and the financial elite didn't waste a single second. The following year, in 1913, they finally delivered the checkmate, taking advantage of December 23rd, Christmas Eve, when the vast majority of opposition politicians had already left Washington to spend the holidays with their families. The Federal Reserve Act was voted on and rushed through for signature by President Woodrow Wilson. The coup was complete. Absolute control over the money printing of an entire nation was officially handed to a cartel of private banks. The plan drawn up on Jekyll Island was now the law of the land, and the blood spilled on the deck of the Titanic had silently paid the bill. J.P. Morgan died the following year, in 1913. But the invisible monster he helped create is alive, operating and dictating the rules of your life to this day. And do you know what the worst part of this entire story is? You are still on board his ship. The modern financial system, the very one that devours your salary every month, is the true Titanic. They continue to print money with no backing behind the scenes, flooding the economy with paper, and relentlessly sinking your purchasing power with the invisible tax of inflation. They tell you the economy is solid and unsinkable. But when the next crisis hits the iceberg, pay close attention. The lifeboats won't be for you. Just like in 1912, the iron gates will lock. Billion-dollar government bailouts will save the big banks, the mega corporations, and leave the working class to freeze and foot the bill. Official history comforts you by saying it was just an iceberg that crossed the wrong path. But on this channel, we don't look at the ice. We follow the money trail. The big question now is, will you keep sleeping in the passenger cabin of this rigged system? Or will you start building your own lifeboat? If this investigation opened your mind, and you had the courage to see what they hide in the shadows of history, subscribe to What They Don't Tell You. Leave a like and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next revelations. The system wants you blind and docile, but we bring the light.